Are you wanting to invest in real estate, but you don't want it to become a second job for yourself? Well, if we follow these 3 key steps that I'm going to be going through in this video, then we can make real estate investing as passive as we want it to be. So be sure to stick around as I'm going to be going through what I do in terms of making my real estate investing as passive as possible. Welcome back, it's Tom here from MOFFAT Mortgages. Thanks again for tuning in. It's always a pleasure having you guys here watch this video. Please feel free to like the video, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. It's greatly appreciated if you do so. So as mentioned in this video, we're going to be going over 3 key steps in order to make real estate investing as passive as possible. So that way we're not getting those late night phone calls and it's occupying more of our week. You know, we all work so hard with our 9-to-5 job that the last thing we want to do is add on more hours in our day to deal with our investments. So let's dive right into it. Let's start out with point number 1, hire a property manager. So what is a property manager? So essentially what a property manager does is they are responsible for that property itself. So they're going to be taking care of the late night calls from the tenants. They are screening the tenants originally to get them in place in that house. You know, they're checking their credit, they're going through the whole thing for you. Also, they're setting and collecting the rent. So they just think of them as kind of the overhead manager for your property. And essentially, of course, you're still gonna get some of those phone calls from the property manager, him or herself. However, it does reduce the amount of phone calls you get late at night. You know, for me, for example, what I tell my property managers is, let's say we want to set a cap at $1,000. I'll tell them, hey, you know what? Anything that requires maintenance under $1,000, just go do it. Send me the invoice after. I don't want to have those phone calls late at night if it's, you know, a $50 repair job. I would rather just pay it. You know, obviously if it's more expensive than $1,000, then I would like to take a look at that to see what we have going on. Okay, so how much do property managers cost? Well, give or take, it's between 8 to 12% of the monthly rent. So let's just average it out to 10%. Let's say we have a $1,000 rent, then of course we're paying the property manager $100 a month. Now in my opinion, this is money well spent. You might be thinking, well, I'd rather pocket that $100. Well, it's totally up to you as an investor whether you want to manage the property yourself or hire that property manager. But for me personally, I'd rather pay the $100 a month or whatever the 10% is in order to make it as hands-off as possible, which is what we're talking about here today. It's important though that when you're running your numbers and you're trying to go for that cash flow or at least break even, well, you want to account for that 10% or whatever the property manager is going to be charging you in order to make sure that you do cash flow on your properties. Okay, so where can we find these property managers? Well, we can always use Google for one. Just type in on the search, create a list of 5 or 6 places, property managers that is, and check out their reviews, give them a call, ask them questions. You know, if you would like a list of questions that I ask specifically, then feel free to comment down below and I'll send that off to you. A second way of finding a property manager is you can join local investor Facebook groups and you can type in on the comment section, you know, looking for a property manager in my area. Please feel free to give me some suggestions. And you'd be surprised how many people would love to help you out with that. You know, if you're trying to look for local contractors, best of luck there. But a lot of investors are pretty willing to share their property managers. So moving on to point number 2, location, location, location. The last thing you want to do is if you're someone that wants this to be as passive as possible, then you want to make sure this property is in a good location. You don't want to buy this property in a rougher neighborhood where you know there's going to be more issues right off the bat. Chances are if you're buying this property in a C or D class neighborhood, you will be getting more phone calls, I can guarantee you that. Whether it's tenants not paying the rent or even worse, property damage, you just don't want to go there. You know, obviously on paper, that property may cash flow even better, but let's just put it this way. If that tenant isn't paying you rent, then the cash flow is not there. So it all comes back to the original market research that you are going to be putting in. Now, I recommend doing a lot of upfront market research on the type of market that you want to invest in because location is very crucial in my opinion. You also want to partner with a very good realtor. So make sure they've been in the game long enough and they know their area very well, because that can be a game changer. Having a realtor who knows what and where they should be having their clients invest in versus a realtor that's new to the game or even new to the market. Okay, so going on to point number 3, choose the right property. Now this kind of ties into point number 2, but we're not really specifically talking about location in this example. We're more so talking about the property itself. So if you want it to be as hands-off as possible, then go with a turnkey property where essentially it's ready to go, no maintenance required, no rentals required. You know, all you have to do is get a tenant in place. Even better if there's already a tenant there, then it's even as hands-off as you can have it. Now, there are some downsides to that. For example, if it is a turnkey property, then you wouldn't be able to implement the BRRR strategy. Now, if you're not familiar with the BRRR strategy, it's a very simple and familiar concept to a lot of investors. So what the BRRR stands for is you buy the place, you renovate it, you refinance it, and you rent it out. And the last R is repeat. So essentially what you're doing there is you're able to recycle your money by not having it tied up in that property, because you're adding value to the property through renovations and then you're refinancing it. Now, if you do the turnkey option, it's going to be less hands-on, of course. However, that money will be sitting there longer, as you won't be able to boost the value of the home and refinance right after. So going back to the point of picking the right property, what I mean by that is you either want it to be a newer property, so there's going to be less issues in the future, the next coming years. You know, maybe it's a property from 1920 where you know you will have some issues going forward with maybe you have to do renovations in the future. Or maybe it's a property that is older, however, it's actually been completely renovated prior to you purchasing it. So I would probably steer towards that direction if you want it to be as hands-off as possible. So there you have it, guys. That concludes today's video. If you implement these 3 key strategies, then I can assure you your investment will be as passive as you want it to be. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.